Hi world, it's Dr. Huffman with Project H3. Today we're going to be talking about a series I titled The Flipside. It's going to be ongoing, but today this is going to be video 1 of 3. The flip side basically gives you perspective and it allows you to see a conversation from different sides of the spectrum and in all facets of life. But today specifically, we're going to be talking and discussing about being on the receiving side of some uncomfortable remarks or comments, or even situations that not necessarily say stereotypes, but infer them. As a nurse leader and as a professor, I teach my students that are future nurses and leaders how to care for our patients, which are strangers, right? We're in rooms with strangers. We don't know where they come from, and we don't know what their thought processes are. And they're also dealing with illness. If they're in the hospital, they're super sick. You know, it's not like they called up the hotel and said, hey, I want a reservation at the hospital. No. So they're in a situation already that is very uncomfortable. And when they're sick, sometimes things are said. And in the hospital and being sick in these situations can be scary, can be frustrating, and out of control. So of course, we're going to have situations that we as nurses and as leaders and as people have to take a step back from, right? We have to look at how we're going to process this while being able to care for this individual and not let it affect us and our caring and what we have to do to keep that person safe and alive. So basically part 1 is going to be, what do I do and how to finagle these situations. Part 2 is going to be mindful of our own remarks and our comments and how we contribute to those uncomfortable situations that we either know or don't know or realize. And then part 3 is, okay, I've listened, now what? What are those strategies? We're going to have some examples and we're just going to dig down into the dirty that a lot of people don't truly know how to do. So in talking about being on the receiving side, I have 5 points I want you guys to know and that we're going to be deciphering today. 1, don't take it personal. We'll get into that, okay? 2, think before you speak. Understand, be mindful. Don't just react, okay? Don't react out of emotion. When your emotions run high, your logic runs low, okay? And so we're not really thinking about the situation logically. Number 3, don't assume others' personal intentions. Just because you may have felt offense from the situation doesn't mean that that other person intended it. And even if they did, you can't assume that, okay? So we have to back up from the situation and actually look at it as a whole. And then number 4, not every remark or every situation is going to require an addressing or response. Remember that saying, pick and choose your battles? Remember that. And then number 5, if all else fails and none of that works, let it go. Water on a duck's back, all right? So let's talk about those 1 through 5 topics that I just said. So don't take it personal. So how do we do this? First and foremost, you can't take what somebody says as a direct attack against you, specifically, even if they don't know you. It's easier said than done. I know it's true. So do you do this? How do you do this, right? Immediately remind yourself as soon as you felt the offense that it's easy to react in a negative way. And when you do react in a negative way, you give that person power over you and your emotions. You're telling them that what you just said to me is true. And you have the power and the authority to control my emotions. And I am going to give you that power and I'm going to get mad. Don't do that. Don't relinquish that power. You keep the control over yourself. You keep the control over your emotions. You remember that others' actions are their responsibility, their words, not yours. People live in their own world, which may or may not agree with yours. Sometimes our worlds overlap, and sometimes they don't, okay? Even when a situation seems so personal with insults, it truly has nothing to do with you. What they say or do in their opinions, they give are solely according to what they have in their own mind, okay? Remember, we live in our own perspective, and perspective is reality. Their reality could stem from fear, worry, anxiety, stress, the list goes on. So I say this again, don't take it personally. Second thing is, what did I say? Think before you speak, be mindful, right? Be here in the now. You do this by creating space between yourself and your reactions. Emotions are a knee-jerk response immediately, right? Always come from a place of love, not fear. Once you say or do something, it's done. You can't take it back. You can ask for forgiveness, but it's already been said and done. You have to know how you feel about certain things, trigger options. Triggers are topics that make us feel uncomfortable and elicit some type of emotional or behavioral reaction, some of which can be learned, and some of which can stem from our own previous painful experiences or memories. So when you find yourself behaving in a manner that's not depicted of who you are, take note of your thoughts and your feelings. Be reflective. Okay? Your thoughts and feelings about situation, people heavily influence your responses and your reactions to situations. Okay? Sometimes it could be something small and you could take it way out of proportion. It's because we're acting before we're thinking, and we're having that emotion overpower our logic. Understanding yourself, how you react, what triggers you, how you feel about certain things, these are the keys to self-improvement. But this skill is not developed in a day or a week. It takes time, and you have to be proactive about it. So if you don't do it, you won't get better at it, okay? I would recommend journaling. Journaling is the best way to know and understand yourself better. Number 3, don't assume other person's intentions. Don't create a story that's not there. We're human, and being human means we're imperfect. Even the kindest individuals have done things that weren't right. That doesn't mean it was intentional. For instance, has your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, whichever, significant other or friend, have they ever snapped at you or been short with you and then eventually you found out it's because they had a stressful day? Same goes on in situations that we're talking about. Don't judge and don't jump to conclusions. What's next? Number 4, pick and choose your battles. Not every remark or comment or situation requires a response. You choose how you react. To get upset at someone you've never met insulting you means that you've accepted that negativity they threw at you as truth. It's just like catching a ball. You have the choice. Do you want to catch it, or you just want to let it drop? It's your choice. And then number 5, if all else fails, let it go. Ask yourself at the end of the day, is this truly going to change my life in the better or for the positive or the negative? In the grand scheme of things, have you truly considered the source that's saying these things to you, that's causing the offense? Remember, you have the choice to decide who you give the power to and who you let control your emotions. Are you going to let somebody else, or are you yourself going to have that self-control? This can only benefit you and those that you love, because anything that affects you affects those that you love, whether you know it or not. Take time to manage your stress, proactively de-stressing and implementing our mental hygiene aspects helps you become more resilient. It helps you think before you speak, which leads to self-control. Prevention is always better than the cure. So in closing, I remind you that today's society attempts to force us into finding value or self-worth in those around us. Without stating the obvious, you are already valuable. You must begin to find that value in yourself. Also, it's important to remember that those around us should not define our self-worth. A lot of conflict comes from our internal battles, how we view ourselves, how we want to be viewed, and how we strive for acceptance, which leads to becoming more sensitive to anything that we could be perceiving as negative. And that can be verbal, physical, emotional. I read an article the other day that it's easy to get caught up in chasing money, status, and popularity, especially when these things are highly valued by society around us. But make an effort to step back and think about what truly matters when determining people's worth. If there were no difference in each one of us, how would you define people? And I hope it would be by their kindness, by their compassion and their empathy and their respect for others, and how well they treat those around us. Being able to reflect daily and consistently and without distraction is a way to find yourself and to find the love within you. You're unique and individual and beautiful. So journal and write. Find a quiet space. There's a lot that has to be done to foster change and growth. And it won't be easy, but it will be possible. The key to change is being mindful and open and more constructive, both positively and optimistically. A lot of people avoid uncomfortable conversations and situations, but avoidance is not an effective problem-solving strategy. Challenge yourself to be the best version of you. If you get a flat tire, do you get rid of the car or do you fix the tire? Hopefully you fix the tire. But if you fix the tire, sometimes you fix it by yourself. Sometimes you call for help. Either way, you've grown from that situation. And how you handle it, if it ever crosses you again. So do the same thing with yourself. There's only one of you. So help fix it. You deserve it. So I say lastly, success in any area of your life happens in small incremental steps. As long as you keep trying, you will keep improving. And that will be reflective in all facets of your life. So the next time you find yourself on the receiving end of an uncomfortable, rude, insulting, or negative remark, take a step back and do the 5. Don't take it personal. Think before you speak. Don't assume the other person's intentions. Pick and choose your battles. And if all else fails, let it go. I'll see you next time on the flip side.